Awesome. Hello, United Way friends out there. I'm Andre Bailey. I don't know a lot of you yet. I'm with Lead Homelessness here in Orlando, Florida, and here with your friend Kathleen Cannon, CEO
Hello,
of
peers.
CEO of United Way of Broward County. Kathleen,
Yes,
drove up today from Fort Lauderdale.
I did. It was 3.5 hours, but it's always a great ride, and it's always good to be here.
Yeah, Orlando. A lot of you. We've got a list of all the attendees. Kathleen, there's over 100 United Ways, close to 100 United Ways on this webinar today. That's on how a United Way, you guys, it's only United Ways on this webinar, but how you can help solve homelessness by working with the business community. Kathleen, here are some of the topics we're going to cover. I know some of the United Ways are still logging on, but some of the topics we're going to cover today, only 1 hour. We're going to be very sensitive to your time. We're not going to go over, but how a United Way can create business-led, high-impact initiatives on homelessness. How do you, as a United Way leader, development officer, impact officer, how can you're already working on homelessness, how can you take that work to the next level, working with the business community? How can business leaders in partnership with United Way bring together other community leaders to drive impact? How can a United Way partner with those leaders to create funding? Funding is an incredibly important part of solutions that United Way is a part of at all times, but how can you work with business leaders to expand funding?
And we'll definitely be talking about the funding piece.
Funding is important, and how a United Way can harness local media and advocacy, incredibly important. So we're excited to have you on. And again, if you end up joining late, don't worry about it. We're going to record this webinar, and we are going to be able to play it back for you later. So our confirmed guests today are the one and only Kathleen Cannon from Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Sue Parks, and Carl Jassa, who are with Orange County in California, and on the other side of America. We're here in Orange County, Florida. They're in Orange County, California, and they'll be talking again, Kathleen and Sue and Carla, about similar initiatives they're doing that are beyond normal programs that a United Way does. All of you out there, every United Way watching this, Kathleen, is doing something on homelessness.
Of course.
They're all involved in programs, your funding through some of your annual campaigns, providers. This is not that.
Right.
This is something where we want to encourage you. Again, if you only have a few minutes, this is the big idea here. We want to encourage you to, let me stop real quick and just say, if you have questions, I'm going to get into the big idea, but if you have questions, you can put those in the GoToWebinar box right now. There's a box right on your screen. Kathleen, technology.
We want questions, because we want to be able to respond to what your needs are and to really be able to answer after we go through. So all your questions are going to be logged. We're going to be fed those questions. Hopefully we'll get to every question.
Last 20 minutes, we're going to answer questions. You can email those questions, or you can text. You can text those questions live. And so we want your questions. But here's the problem and the big idea, and what we want to talk to you as United Way leaders about today. Working with business leaders to really make a bigger impact on homelessness. But here's the problem you guys all have as United Way leaders and communities across America. You, as a United Way leader, are being asked to solve homelessness. Kathleen, in Fort Lauderdale and Broward County, when people see homeless folks, they look at you.
Oh, yeah.
They look at the mayor. They look at a few others, and they say, this is your fault.
Let's go. Come on.
So you have the problem that, as a United Way leader, you're kind of tasked philosophically with solving homelessness. The problem is you have limited resources and you have a limited role to do that.
Right. We're not in charge of continuum cares or of homelessness per se.
You're not in charge. So in Orlando, we're here in Orlando. I live in Orlando, Lead Homelessness. Our office is in Orlando. Orlando, when we saw an article like this, that Orlando at one time in 2013 ranked #1 in America for chronic homelessness for mid-sized cities, people looked at our United Way, our philanthropic leaders, a few of us. We were responsible, but we didn't have the authority and the position to change it. So here's the big solution that we have seen Kathleen Cannon in Broward County at the United Way of Broward County, what we've seen the Orange County United Way in California, what they've been working on the past year. The solution is to use business leaders United Ways can use business leaders to influence and transform how your community works on homelessness. That's the big idea here. So, Kathleen, you're going to talk about your initiative in a second, but let me deep dive, guys, just for a minute. Indulge me on what I mean by this. So, Kathleen, this big mess of a maze here is not a scene from Spider-Man. This, if you guys can't read this very well, we'll send you all these slides. But this is typically in your community or in communities around America, what a homeless response system looks like. Meaning there's money that comes down from the federal level, from HUD, money that comes down from the VA, local government initiatives, housing authorities. There's a continuum of care. Some of you might be the continuum of care in your community, most likely not. Very few. So there's a continuum of care. You guys know all of these things. There's local strategies. And then on the ground floor of all of this money and mess is at best some kind of coordinated system that the continuum of care runs, providers, shelters.
Committees, subcommittees, all types of different things.
Then here's United Way, right here. In most communities, you're asked to solve homelessness, but this is kind of where you sit as far as your ability to have authority, if you will, positional authority to do that. That's a problem. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
So this is what we feel like we're recommending you do, and what you're going to hear Kathleen and Orange County, California did. Our big 4 solutions for United Ways. Build a business council of leaders in your community, the top most powerful business leaders in your community into an official council, which has no authority.
Right, but
if it's the most powerful people,
so much influence.
So much influence, and you'll hear how Kathleen did that in just a minute. Number 2, start a community campaign that this council exists inside of. Kathleen is now running something called United We End Homelessness, which is a United Way program.
Yes.
Orange County United Way is running a program, a campaign called United to End Homelessness.
Right.
And again, this campaign, the business council exists inside of this campaign. So it's repositioning United Way's leadership in a community. The third thing, create an impact fund. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but you need a designated impact fund that you can raise additional money that then is targeted, number 4, towards advocacy and big goals. So this is the big 4 recommendations, and this is kind of what it would look like. You remember that chart where you guys were down here and you were kind of not necessarily empowered for big homeless solutions? What we have found and what we've seen work around America is that Kathleen, Sue, and Carla, and other United Ways aren't the only group that could do this, Kathleen, but I would tell you, I think they're the best positioned group because you work with nonprofits every day already. You already work with business leaders.
Right. We have so many business connections. And
this is you already.
Yeah, it totally is.
So this is kind of our visual for what can happen in a community. But instead of being down here and kind of being almost the victim
or they're just taking us along for the ride. Instead, now we're influencing and leading the charge.
Yes, you using your business council and bigger funding goals and advocacy, you can help create the strategy, new funding, and accountability to drive solutions on homelessness. Now, Kathleen, all of this is predicated on the idea that a United Way would want to or need to step beyond just the good work they're doing. You guys were doing tremendous work on this issue. You can keep advancing. You guys were doing tremendous work on this issue, but that work and your community's ability kind of has reached the ceiling and you're seeing all these communities around America make progress. Is that one of the motivations to why you?
So it was a motivation, and you know that it was a little bit of a crisis for us as a community. And we decided that we need to really kind of step forth, start to lead the charge. However, like you said, we don't run or own the continuum of care. We don't pull down all the HUD funding. So we did not control all the dollars, but that we thought we could start controlling the message, start moving towards the housing first model, bringing the business community to bear in on our community. And that was our biggest game changer about the influence piece and also raising dollars.
Gotcha. Go back one slide. I want to stress this to all of the CEOs, impact officers, development officers, program officers, whoever you are out there from a United Way. Listen, I'm not sitting here on this webinar with Kathleen to tell you to do housing first and that you need to do permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. If your community is not doing that, you have zero chance. I mean, I love you, stay on the webinar, but you have zero chance of solving homelessness. With the $1 zillion, you won't do it. So this is not a webinar to tell you that. And again, I'm sorry if that hurt anyone's feelings out there if you're still doing all the old models. But if you're not doing, this is not a webinar to say that housing first, permanent supportive housing, you should do those. I'm sure they're all doing those. All these communities are doing those. This is to tell you guys out there that even if your community has those strategies, right, which most of you do, unless you have the leaders, the communities around America that have brought their homeless solution to scale. It's not just been housing first as the idea. It's been housing first partnered with business leaders, elected officials, and others that can get it done. Right. I'll just show you guys this. We'll send you links on this later. Orlando, worst, I'll tell you, this is my hometown. We were worst in America. Kathleen laughed at us for years. But we saw meteoric progress between 2014, 15, 16, and 17. You know, Kathleen, we've reduced homelessness in Central Florida 5 years in a row.
I know, that's really remarkable. You guys were just in the paper the other day, down by us, that we read about it.
But this, and I won't get deep into this, I just want you to know this, United Way leaders. How that happened is absolutely business leaders who pulled other parts of the community together and for strategy, new funding, and accountability. United Way, a big part of that. The philanthropic community, a big part of that. So again, Kathleen's going to move into talking about her campaign, United, We End Homelessness. But if you have questions, throw them out to us. Our staff will bring them to us. We'll answer them in just a minute. So Kathleen, what's it like running United Way? How do you?
So today's my 7th year anniversary of being on board of United Way. So guys, I know the hard work that you're doing. Honest to goodness, I know there's different types of folks on, and I know many of you. However, a few years ago, you know that we started something called Mission United, which was about veterans, but it was a collective impact model. We did bring the business community to bear to really serve.
Out there.
Yeah, you guys are doing Mission United now. Same thing happened here, where there was a crisis. We downtown, our beautiful downtown, we have this amazing library, main library, and this women's center, and it's the hub of our downtown. And there was an encampment there, and it was there for years. And then it started to grow. People were first under tarps, and then there were very great, wonderful people that came down and gave everybody tents.
Here's the photo.
So here's, hopefully you can see all this. Totally a tent city right in our downtown. So anybody who's coming to Fort Lauderdale for vacation sees this. All the business owners see this. This is what was viewed all over, and it was becoming a crisis, and it was getting worse. And we have amazing nonprofits doing amazing work, but they just couldn't bring the next level to bear on this particular issue. We have an amazing company called AutoNation. They are downtown, and they were going to sign their next 10-year lease in Fort Lauderdale, one of the largest employers in Fort Lauderdale. And they said, we really don't want to be around this homeless. It's right outside our door.
It was literally, because I've been there. The encampment was beneath AutoNation.
Yes, it was right there.
By the way, AutoNation, a Fortune 100 company, one of the largest 100 companies in America. Kathleen's one of her biggest supporters.
Yes, 100%.
And they look down every day, and in their courtyard was a camp with hundreds of tents at a time.
So there was like more than 100 people living there with tents, but then there was all other homeless visitors that were coming there and coming down to the downtown corridor. So you can see.
So you got some calls about that.
So not happy. And also, who got a call from AutoNation was our CEO for the Alliance, which is our economic development organization. Now, we work really well together. So United Way and the business community.
CEO right here.
CEO is Bob Swindell. So we have done initiatives in the past. We feel that it's so effective that if you're bringing human services to bear with the economic engine and the economic development organization, you're coming at folks and communities, I think, with two lenses. So it doesn't matter what your lens is, but if you're coming from an economic engine and development perspective, as well as human services, it seemed to work better. We got open more doors that way. So we joined together the Economic Development Organization and United Way, and we formed United We End Homelessness. That's actually United Way's initiative, but we Broward Business Council on Homelessness. That's the advisory council that works under United We End Homelessness, and the CEO for AutoNation was our co-chair, as well as that was Mike Jackson and James Donnelly, another co-chair. Two biggest business leaders in Broward County decided to join this effort with us to make sure that we were moving the needle, that we had accountability, that we could actually solve this issue, not just shuffle everything around.
Yeah, so let me recap that. Go back to here. So let me recap that, United Way leaders, and go one different direction with it. So Kathleen, about a year ago, gets a call from the top business chamber in the community, and that call is this: if we don't get rid of this encampment and help these people get off the streets, we're all screwed. and I think you guys can relate to this in your communities, in that ultimately, Kathleen was working hard on homelessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were funding homelessness.
Yeah,
you were doing housing first.
Yeah.
You run the SSVF grant
Yes,
for veterans.
yes,
All right.
yes.
So Kathleen, deeply involved in homelessness. Fort Lauderdale, Broward County had done some good work on homelessness. But that work had reached a plateau.
Yeah, it did.
It had reached a plateau. And again, I won't go back to that slide with that big maze on it. But I think, Kathleen, this is the quandary you have to get, that your homeless efforts in every one of your communities, because of the limited funding and the limited authority that you have as a United Way, you're going to reach this place where you can kind of go no further. Mm-hmm. Policies and resources won't match it. But Kathleen, like some of you, if she didn't make more progress, it was going to be detrimental to your brand, to
United Way, to the community.
And these people weren't going to get help,
right?
Which is important. So out of that dilemma came the Broward Business Council and United We End Homelessness, because again, unless they could create philosophically and practically something that now could bring the community together, there was no place else to go.
Right. And we socialized this idea, which you know and you helped us with. We had to really educate the business community that homelessness is not about just people not wanting to go back to work and that they all choosing to live on the street. We really had to educate and socialize this idea, and that worked really well because it did open doors to some businesses that we've never gotten into before to start to have this conversation, socializing it. So then when we were coming in for the ask, it has already been socialized, and we've really talked it up and really showcased it in many areas. And we showcased it at an economic luncheon, as well as human services. So we socialized it in many different areas and arenas so that different audiences heard what was coming and how we were going to solve this and what the ask was going to be of the community.
Go to one more slide ahead. So just kind of skipping to what I think is a synopsis, and they've only been doing this 8 months. Orange County United Way in California has been at this about 12, 16 months-ish. But this is what Kathleen and her group have focused on and have seen already. They've already seen new business leaders committed. Right. How many business leaders do you have committed to your business council?
We have 45 business leaders that sit on the Broward Business Council of Homelessness and others who sit on our Tiger teams, which are our subcommittees.
So they have close to 75 to 100 new business leaders who, by the way, United Way development officers, impact officers, CEOs, listen to this. These are some of these leaders are not people that wanted to serve on a normal United Way board. They weren't interested in joining the annual giving.
Yeah, the annual campaign the cabinet.
And I've seen this around America, guys out there. Listen, the level of leader you're going to be able to draw into a business council that sits, that United Way runs, but that sits focused on bigger goals it's a whole different ballgame. Again, go back to slide 22 really quickly, because I just want to show them this. Very, very important. But this guy right here, this is Mike Jackson. He is the CEO of AutoNation, Fortune 100 company. This guy, Kathleen, I'm sure knew him at some level, but not the easiest guy to get a meeting with.
No.
He became, because of this crisis and because of this new United Way broader campaign based on bigger goals, he became the chairperson of the Broward Business Council on Homelessness that the United Way launched. So think of the leaders. Go back to that slide, please. Slide 25. The leaders that you are able to bring in, new business leaders, are phenomenal, and they've seen that. But you had to, Kathleen, put it in a bigger community campaign.
Yes. And that's where the socializing the idea are coming up. United We End Homelessness, getting the mayors, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, but the other mayors around the community, getting public servants, the other nonprofits, the chambers, the development organizations. We tried to really bring everybody into this campaign, and we launched United We End Homelessness, kind of powered by the Business Council. And that's the key. Is you can't go down this road without engaging your top business leaders, where they are side by side in this fight to solve homelessness.
Now, Kathleen said something important here. When you pull your business leaders together, you guys go down the road to do this. You can't leave out the elected officials.
No.
You can't leave out other big philanthropists. You don't want to leave out faith leaders.
No, faith.
But they will be drawn in by the business leaders. And so those business leaders become the key.
Start with the business leaders. Because I feel like you just start with the elected officials or even the other nonprofits, that you're not going to have the influence that you need. You have to start with the business leaders, and then others come in. And you've got to be careful, politic-wise, and the nuances about making sure that the people do need to sit at the table that need to be heard, and who have been in this game, I guess I would say, all along the way. And you know how we engage the judge. We now have a
chief judges.
Chief judge. Now we've got a community court that is just for homelessness. So a lot of amazing things happened once we started.
Go back to slide 10 real quick. Because again, some of you out there, I know I can read your mind. United Way leaders out there can read your mind. Here's what they're saying, Kathleen. They're saying, Andre, are you saying to us that this maze of how homelessness is set up, of where we exist right here in an important part, but without a leadership role, that we basically, when we hit a ceiling, are going to have to figure out a way to bypass this maze? Slide 13, please. That's exactly what I'm saying. And again, your ability to pull all these leaders together, like Kathleen's talking about, and create a new pathway forward with resources and strategy. We're not here, Kathleen, every day, Sue and Carla from Orange County United Way, every day, they work hard to not alienate providers.
Oh my gosh.
To not alienate the continuum of care.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, this is me talking, this is not them talking. If you do not figure out a way to influence your continuum of care, if you do not figure out a way to use policy and funding to influence your providers, you will never collaborate them to any transformation. There's a huge misunderstanding, in my opinion. Collaboration will never on its own produce transformation. You have to have systems change using money and leadership to make that happen.
Absolutely. And we didn't start that way and tell everyone there's going to be the system change. This is a slow process. So, just be cautious there. But I think the business leaders coming into bear, you do have to be careful about stepping on toes. We were pretty honest, Brett. Hey, this is not our whole expertise. What we understand human services, we understand convening, we understand the business community.
There's no one more appropriate to bring business leaders together than you guys, because you're already working with business leaders. You're already working in philanthropy.
And they want us to lead.
You're already funding homelessness.
Right. Yes. And they want us to lead, and they want us to solve big issues.
Yep. So Kathleen created an impact fund. And go to slide 26 real quick. Your staff sent me the whole list of your funders.
Yeah.
So I deleted all the actual funders because I didn't think you wanted to show everyone.
No, I don't want to do that.
But I would just tell you, because I think some of you are going to ask this, impact officers, development officers, CEOs. Kathleen and her team have already, in new money,
It's brand new money.
Brand new
So
money.
that I will talk about that because I don't want anyone to think that this is cannibalizing from other areas.
In 8 months, they've raised $1.4 million. And guys, gals out there, listen.
New donors, new businesses.
Kathleen, that might be like, that's impossible. Well, we're out there fundraising every day. How are you going to get this new money? I'm telling you, because I've worked on this around America, there's money that will come, go back to that slide, please. There's money that will come, typical philanthropy, typical campaigns you guys do, workforce giving, but there's a whole a whole level of money up here that people and philanthropists are going to give to solving problems. That's different than just everyday philanthropy.
And specific problems.
Yep.
So this is for the folks that went to the Community Leaders Impact Conference. It really is about us telling our story, but it is galvanizing and it is solving specific issues. And homelessness, it's a national crisis. It's in your communities. It's here. It was the perfect thing for us to galvanize our business leaders and others around this specific issue.
Gotcha. So the last thing I'll brag about, and we're going to send you a bunch of links and articles on Kathleen's work, and Kathleen's open to any question you might have. But one big thing they've completed in the past 6 months, go back to slide 24, please, is that encampment that we showed you is gone. That encampment was there 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years, that encampment sat in the middle of Fort Lauderdale. And this is, I screenshotted this because this was your newspaper, your big local newspaper, who hasn't always been kind to all of you on homelessness.
No.
Not a friendly group on homelessness, but this is what they said. It is almost impossible to believe that the homeless encampment is gone from Fort Lauderdale. For making this happen in a humanitarian way. People weren't.
That's important.
They were housed. They weren't shooted away.
No, they were housed.
We offer a hearty round of applause. And so I would tell you the impossible is possible when you bring together the most powerful philanthropic business leaders in a community. Some of this, Kathleen, is almost such common sense in a way that you hit a ceiling on homelessness. Really on any issue, you got to recruit in the same people in your community that do everything else.
Exactly.
So Kathleen, we're going to answer some questions. We're going to have her answer some questions in a minute. But let's go to slide 27. We're going to get a quick overview of United to End Homelessness. Carla and Sue, so fantastic from there. I'm just going to show you a few slides on what they're doing. This is them. Yay! They're joining us via technology.
Yes.
So
great job, ladies.
So next slide. So they again, United to End Homelessness. Again, I think they started United to End Homelessness sometime in the middle of 2018. Launched this out, and now they're engaging their community in a way that they've never really had before. Again, they've been working on homelessness for years. They've been dedicated to this issue for years. But now they're engaging the community from a strategic resource and big goal perspective. This is leaders coming in from other communities, talking to them about how this worked in their community. They're constantly convening and now educating the community. They've raised a lot of money through their United We End Homelessness Fund. So let's, without further ado, meet Carla and Sue from Orange County, California, which might be a lot more warm and sunny than what you guys are seeing right now.
Well, thank you, Andre. We're happy to be on the webinar today and share a little bit what we've been doing here in Orange County. Carla and I have some information. We've been at it probably a year and a half so far on the bigger campaign that we're going to take you through. My name is Sue Parks. I'm the CEO here in Orange County.
And I'm Carla Jasa. I'm the COO here in Orange County.
Yeah, so I think, Carla, it'd be great for you to talk about how did we get to homelessness here as one of our focus areas.
Sure, no, I'd be happy to. So, hello, United Way friends. Happy to be able to be here with all of you virtually today. Our United Way here in Orange County, California, we're a population of 3 million people. We're, in an area that has a very high cost of living. And in 2014, as many of you have done, we launched a 10-year community change plan with very deliberate 10-year measurable goals. And for the first time, because of the significant pressure that that housing was creating in our community for children and families and the whole community, we adopted housing as a key area of focus. You can see behind us, it's a building block, and we've adopted that along with income, health, and education as our fourth pillar that we were focused on. And when we did that, we knew that we needed to really focus on the next generation. So we looked at, as our goal, cutting the percentage of homeless and unstably housed children in half. But we knew that there were infrastructure issues that needed to be addressed with a larger issue of homelessness in our community, including issues that were making it difficult for the chronically homeless to be housed through a functioning coordinated entry system, the right type of data systems. And it came to light that we really needed to have a cost study on homelessness in our community in order to demonstrate to policymakers and to the business world that making an investment in housing people was a much sounder investment than allowing people to be homeless on our streets.
I think that cost study really set the stage. I mean, there are very specific recommendations that came out of it. And I think the next step, I had just joined, and within 15 minutes of my first day on the job, I met Andre Bailey. And Andre was a guest of a group of people, community leaders, who wanted to learn more about what was going on with homelessness. And one of our county supervisors, just to give you a little bit of our structure, we have 5 supervisors in Orange County, and there are 34 cities. And so part of the biggest challenge here is just the coordination of all that, the county and the cities. We don't have one big city in Orange County, so we are a little bit unique that way. And I think that was expressed around the table. So we looked at the cost study recommendations, and then we learned best practices by looking at Orlando and learning from Andre some of the other things that have been going on around the country that have been successful. For example, we got very passionate and excited about learning that street homelessness in Orlando had been cut in half in 3 years. And we had this huge, very visible problem forming along our riverbed in Orange County that actually kind of made our issue here become national news. What we wanted to do is really reach out to business leaders, and so that was really important. As United Ways, we have a really great relationship with our business leaders, and many of them had not been engaged in this issue. And so we did small meetings. We brought together maybe 15, 20 business leaders and other philanthropists, other community leaders, not necessarily the people that were hands-on on this issue, but people that really know how to achieve a goal in life and get their input on what we could do together, and if they'd be interested in helping us solve homelessness. And thus, this collaborative came together, and United to End Homelessness was launched. So we have a leadership council of 45 community leaders, business, and we included the government leaders, we have nonprofit leaders, we have faith leaders now engaged. So really great cross-section of the community all kind of came together. So we really implemented that cost study, a really important part of getting everybody in the same room. So I think maybe one of the things we could talk about from one of the questions, what are some of the biggest challenges your organization has faced in its efforts to create broader solutions to homelessness in your region? And I'm going to say part of that is just what you mentioned, is the fact that it was a very dispersed community of people trying to solve it in all independent pockets. And government, as we've learned, is doing really a lot in this area, in here, maybe the county government, but it really wasn't coordinating with the business community, with the philanthropic community. It wasn't uniting everybody to come together on a real solution to end homelessness. And so there were just a lot of different factions. And I will say still, we are a year from launching United to End Homelessness, a little longer involved in this because of our planning. Mm-hmm. But still pulling everybody together. Carla and I sometimes talk about the arrows we pull out of each other's backs at different times because we're really trying to bring together people that maybe have never really collaborated for the common good of the community. So I would say that kind of different challenge is still tricky, but the rewards are great. I think the idea that people have recognized United Way in a whole different light. This is a very visible issue. There hadn't been anybody to step forward to say, we'll do that work of trying to pull everybody together in one direction. And I will say our brand has benefited along with all of the work that we're doing. Mm-hmm. Now, there's still, my sister asks me this every day, Are there homeless in Orange County still? Yes, there are, right? We're still early on in terms of this mission. But we can see that we can end family homelessness. We can, like many of you, end veterans homeless. We can start looking at these different segments. But I'd say that getting everybody to still cooperate is a little challenge, a little tricky on the service providers. Sometimes there's jealousy, concern about their funding, and we're always trying to operate at the higher level of like, this is about solving the issue. Let us help fill gaps. We're not here to create, we're not trying to take away anybody's work. We're trying to fill gaps of what's needed to close and really solve this issue so people have a place to call home.
So one of the questions we have here from you is, what are some of the biggest challenges your organization has faced in its efforts to create broader solutions to homelessness in your region? Well, there have been challenges. We got to be real about that. But the good news is we were backed up by the recommendations of the cost study that we engaged in 3 years back. So we were really grounded in solid recommendations and a collaborative effort that we had already started. But some of the challenges included, we have a very disparate and bifurcated community. We have one county, but we have 34 cities, and the county has different jurisdiction over different shelters, and so do the cities. And we have nonprofits who are operating in their own work and who have different understandings of what their priorities are, how to even address homelessness. So that was a challenge. And then really, finally, I think a challenge was amongst providers and the county government, who may feel that they're the ones who should really be solving homelessness. Why is United Way stepping into a role to really help to lead? And the answer to that is, United Way is really the only organization that can engage businesses in a way that no other organization can. And when we called, the businesses listened. They wanted to know the right solutions, and they listened to us and have become involved.
Yeah, I think the strength of the United Way in terms of our brand about pulling everybody together really came to life with United 10 homelessness. And we were so neutral to all of some of the things that were going on between the county and the cities and the multiple service providers. We kind of became a safe place for people to come together and really focus together on how we're going to solve homelessness. So along the way, there was a question about, so what are the financial ramifications, positive and negatives, to starting a major initiative like this? I would say right now we're viewing it as positive. And positive, I think, because our hearts are all about, we are going to end homelessness here in Orange County, and we are going to figure that out. I feel like we have a path forward. So I think all of that is great, and I think that the community feels that. And so we've had different people invest in our work than we've had before, and I think we've been able to explain our purpose, our focus, and start talking to business people about actually ending it versus just managing it. So again, we've got some different audiences that have gotten involved. I think that's great. The other thing I want to say is provided an overall halo for our organization in terms of stepping forward on difficult work, and it's such a visible issue. It's actually been great for our overall brand here, is that people respect the fact that we've stepped forward. So I think that's going to bode well for the other work that we're doing in the community. At the end of the day, it's always about results. So I know we're early on in results, but maybe Carly can share a couple of things that we've done.
Yeah, sure. So we launched a broad public awareness campaign, and we have gotten front page articles in our local publications, Orange County Register, the Orange County Business Journal. We've had editorials. We've engaged the faith community with the Faith Leaders Council. We have over 3,000 supporters who've actually signed up through a new website that we've developed to be able to get people engaged in the issue that we then intend to deploy out in the community in support of the solution to homelessness, which is permanent supportive housing. And I mentioned earlier that one of our biggest challenges was in working with the county in terms of what our respective roles were. One of our biggest successes has also been having the county now engage in a contract with United Way to create a landlord incentive program for the county. So really engaging, again, the private market, apartment owners who can make their units available for people who are holding rental vouchers who are formerly homeless. We're really excited about that. We just launched the Welcome Home OC program last month, where we've worked with one private market owner, and we have a goal to engage 100 private market units over this next year. And we have much more bold goals beyond that, but that's one big success for us.
I also highly recommend, talking to Andre and learning what he did. He really helped us in terms of the model of how to pull people together. He enlightened us on some of the pitfalls and some of the challenges, and we faced them all. So
and also emboldened us in
yes,
many ways
exactly.
as well to really be able to step into this role.
Yeah, so it's good to know there are people out there. And we are here for you as well. So I'd strongly say if there's a gap in your community and you have this opportunity to step forward and no one has brought the business community and the philanthropy community and the faith community into one united effort to focus on solutions versus just piecemeal different good things that happen but are coming together to a solution, I strongly say yes. And again, we're here to help.
Call us. Bye.
They are fantastic. Just showing you a little bit about their success, because obviously, Kathleen, folks out there watching this, we've got United Ways around America watching this webinar. Their first question is, how would we do this? How would we figure out how to have the staffing and how to have the bandwidth to do this? But I would tell you from experience and from working with United Ways and others around America on this issue, when you put out big goals and big solutions and when you say we're really going to work together to end homelessness, but not like as a tagline, but really here's the strategy to go do it. There are leaders that will come off the sidelines to join you, and there's money. Again, in Orlando, I don't want to take a bunch of time to talk about Orlando because we've got great leaders from United Way around America here. But in Orlando, we raised millions of dollars. We had an impact fund that raised on its own about $10 million. None of that money was coming to just regular, everyday homeless work. They wanted to see homelessness transform. So United Way in Orange County, they've got some pretty hefty donations in their first 12, 18 months. And again, huge kudos to them for stepping out. But again, Kathleen, coming back for those that just joined the webinar, we've got about 15 minutes left. We're going to start answering questions. But these are the big recommendations. If you're a United Way, who obviously all of you work on homelessness, how do you find a way to work on homelessness from kind of a top-down leadership standpoint, not just be a provider, not just provide grants to those in your community through your campaigns and that sort of thing? We strongly recommend that United Ways build a business council that's a leadership group that exists inside of a new campaign, and that you create an impact fund, those three things, and then target advocacy towards the big goals. Go to slide 39. Let me give you one other, Kathleen knows this well, but one other kind of example of what this looks like. You're trying to end homelessness. And so you get your leaders together and you enlist, recruit, get them committed. Then you start saying, okay, we got this fund, we got this campaign. And now we start saying chronic, veterans, family, youth, all of the things that you guys already targeted at. But now we have the kind of leaders that can bring the institutional change to end homelessness. We'll send you this slide as well. Some of you, I know, you can't read this well. But the bigger point is this. If you want to end homelessness, you got to kind of start, Kathleen, with the leaders who have the ability to create the change.
Yes.
And it doesn't happen.
And there is disruption here. So Carla and Sue touched on it. This was not an easy foray to jump into. There was politics, like I said before, there was personalities, there were silos. This was not easy, but having the business community kind of behind our back as United Way, others were like, all right, well, we've got to join. We've got to do this. So I think it really helped some of that socializing the idea, and some people that didn't want us to step into the realm. Having the business community brought that influence, and nobody was going to say no at this point. So, and it brought the county to bear in a bigger way and a more strategic way and about a convening way. So it really brought so many more people to the table. And I know we can't go through strategy, but I am telling you, I am so happy to walk anyone through the strategy. I will share my information. I can talk about tactics. I can talk about what really didn't work and what really is working. So I can get into the nitty-gritty with each of you individually.
So Kathleen, we have a question here. Tell us a little bit about the United Way of Broward County and what kind of workload did this add to your team starting a campaign for the business?
Okay, so it's a workload.
How many staff do you have? How big is your organization?
Well, we're almost a $20 million United Way. We have 60 staff, but we did need to hire somebody. And I'm going to tell you, Andre, and you were great with this. We hired someone who was a former CEO. So she ran several banks in our community, as well as here in Orlando, retired, went to Harvard just to get some education. decided to come back to Broward, and we hired her to lead this charge. So she is our staff member that chairs the Broward Business Council on Homelessness and United We End Homelessness. So that was a piece that was super helpful to us because she's a peer to so many other business leaders. We had to hire an admin staff. We, as you know, we put in underneath the Broward Business Council on Homelessness, we call them tiger teams. We didn't do, and we're doing no direct services. So I want to be clear to the United Way here. So we did 4 tiger teams. One was fundraising, which was important. The other was data. We wanted to be able to collect data, especially monetizing homelessness, that it costs $47,000 to keep somebody homeless. It only costs $18,000 to house them. We did an employment tiger team to getting people back to work. And then we did the landlord recruitment. So we found apartments. So this is all business community was helping in all these aspects. So that was an important piece for us. And we had to raise money to be able to hire the staff. And I tell you and others that we were kind of flying the plane and building the wing at the same time. So we did have some pitfalls, but we raised over $1.4 million at this point. We have a couple staff. We did a campaign, a social media campaign, as well as obviously a fundraising campaign. And for the development officers, I want you to know that we led every conversation that this is not about taking the dollars you're already giving and transferring. We were so clear that these are additional dollars, new dollars. And we didn't do individual donor asks, we did business asks, we did corporate asks. We wanted the business community to really lead this charge through influence, but through philanthropy as well. So we were really careful. You can't change your corporate gift or your Tocqueville gift and put it towards this. This is an addition to. So I want folks to know there was no cannibalization of dollars.
Kathleen, another question. How do you overcome criticism or challenges that some in the provider community or your homeless continuum have with United Way trying to get involved from a strategy standpoint?
A lot of criticisms. However, this is how I also led the conversation. If we don't do something different in Broward, 2 million people, nothing is going to change. And I did upset some people. There were hurt feelings and hurt personalities, and that there were politics that had to be navigated. But I just kept at the course, and I just kept talking about together we can end homelessness if we work together. So this is not about your stuff, my stuff. So I just kept leading with the goal in mind about ending homelessness, and that it does need to disrupt a little bit. We need to transform. You were good about coming in and having some of those tough conversations with some of our communities. But I do want folks to know it's not going to be smooth sailing, but it's so worth the effort to be able to go down this road.
And again, go back to slide 23 really quickly, because I think this is very, very important for those United Way leaders on the webinar. Kathleen didn't go out as just Kathleen, CEO of United Way.
No.
She went out under this new umbrella and with this new leadership team. And that by itself, people might not have loved it, but they had to.
They couldn't ignore it.
They couldn't ignore it.
They really could not ignore it. When the business community was behind this and others, they were kind of like, oh shit, we better get on board with this. And that was serious.
So I just have to encourage you, because some of you out there might be like, well, we already have some business leaders. We'll put a little meeting together. The formal nature of this work, having some kind of council, whatever you call it, having that exist underneath a new United Way banner locally, that is what allows you to not necessarily get everyone to love this campaign, but to overcome the objections. Here's another question. What is the process of raising the funds? Kathleen, how do you manage your fundraising teams at United Way?
So again, we have one lead on this, but the entire agency is behind it, impact folks as well as development officers. But we made very specific business asks, and I'll be honest, we're not doing this in the WordPress campaign. We're not going to employees and saying, oh, could you donate out of your paycheck to end homelessness?
Hold on real quick, because I read the last part of that question. Okay. It was a good question. So let's say you raise a couple $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. you're not going to just, the question was, how do you then disperse it to those that apply? But I want to jump in here, because this money, because it's in an impact fund, is not just shotgunned out there to providers. This money is going to be used towards the big goals. So United Way, and the way, this is my observation of it, United Way raises $5 million, let's say, and United Way out there in a workforce giving campaign. United Way has its measurements to how it gives that out. But in some ways, it's a give and take with the community. You got to fund legacy shelters and legacy food banks, and that's okay. When you raise money through an impact fund, through one of these campaigns, you have the ability to target that money just towards ending homelessness.
100%. We did not do, like, this is not come and apply for your allocations.
No.
We did not do business as normal here, and we were clear out of the gate that we were not doing business as normal, that this was going to go to very specific gaps in services, things that were needed to permanently house people. And that was the model that we came
And
out
that's what the business leaders gave towards. Go to slide 38, because again, this is the slide we just created for this webinar. But again, the big idea here, United Way leaders, is that there's this system on homelessness, the continuum of care, normal grants. You're a part of the system, and it's an important system. And it's a system that has made progress around America. But what we have found, we've studied virtually every community, big community in America on homelessness. You will reach a ceiling as a community if this is the only way you're addressing homelessness. United Way is uniquely positioned, in my opinion, to create leadership, both business leaders, elected leaders, and take them on a process and get new resources to then drive new strategies with new money and bring accountability. And suddenly, the problems you couldn't solve before, the housing you couldn't find, the landlords you couldn't reach, all of that becomes realistic. Question, how do you approach business leaders interested and engaged in ending homelessness? A great question. I'll tee it up for you. I would tell you this, that as someone who has worked with the business community around America on this issue, you think business leaders want to be engaged at more of a dumbed down level? I'm just telling you, I've done fundraising for years. My inclination was, don't get them in the sausage making, because then they'll be turned off. The people that have given the largest amounts of money, Kathleen, are business leaders, top business leaders, who you bring into this issue and really show them what needs to be fixed.
It's a complex issue, and we were clear about that. And they are in some of the sausage making. There's like real transparency. We're talking about the dollars that we raised, how much there is, how much we're spending internally. So a lot of transparency, but it was all painted around this big goal. And we knocked on doors that we have never gotten in before, and we have gotten entree, and those companies have gave some corporate gifts.
Go to slide 35, please. We're going to end in just a minute. Thank you. If you have more questions, we're going to answer those. Slide 35. But leave this up here. Again, this is what I've seen Kathleen, Sue, and Carla and others accomplish by putting these bigger campaigns with business leaders together. They've aligned business leaders. They've increased awareness across the board on homelessness, created resources that weren't there, started driving real strategies and real solutions, facilitated systems change, and started to make progress, miraculous progress. Go to slide 40, please. Just as we wrap up, and Kathleen, thank you for coming in.
Oh my gosh, Andrea, thanks for having me. Thanks for your help getting us going, as helping us be the disruptor without me saying to everybody about being the disruptor. You were a great pivot point there.
Well, and I'll wrap up the webinar by again telling you, you have a bunch of you asked questions. We didn't have time to get to them. We will get those questions answered to you after the webinar. But if you have more questions, you can put them in the Go to Webinar panel. You can email me directly, or you can text me directly. But Kathleen, I would just end by saying this, that homelessness as an issue in your community and across America, I think it's reached a place because of affordable housing, the affordable housing crisis, and the increased emphasis on the opioid crisis, which all of you are going to get pulled into if you're not into it already. Homelessness has reached a place where I think unless groups like United Way begin to take a higher level approach to working on the issue, like Kathleen has done in Fort Lauderdale, like Carla and Sue have done in Orange County, California. I think this work, if we're honest, around America has hit a stagnant point where a lot of communities have gotten as far as they're going to go. United Way, I think, across this country can be a driving force in taking the work of homelessness to another level, but it's going to have to come from going above just your continuum of care and your local giving to working with business leaders at a transformational, higher strategic resource accountability level.
Big, bold goals. You've got to lay it out there.
Ask us questions, send us emails. Again, I'm Andre Bailey. Thank you so much. Oh, we have a packet that we have put together. We're going to be mailing and emailing you all the questions that we have that you might have. We'll answer. Kathleen, thank you.
Thanks.
United Way leaders, we'll be talking to you again soon. Take care.
Thank you, guys.